5:30. I will call to order the West Fargo Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. First item is the approval of the order of the agenda.
Move to approve the order of agenda.
Second.
It's moved and seconded to approve the order of the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Okay. Next item is the approval of the minutes from the meeting on January 14th, 2025.
Move to approve the minutes.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the minutes as electronically published. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Okay, minutes are approved. Now we move to the regular agenda. Item number 1 is a public hearing, A24-32, Hope Lutheran Edition, a request for subdivision and zoning change from A agricultural to R1A, single-family dwellings in the south half of Section 31, Township 139 North, Range 49 West. It's continued from December.
Let me scroll down to the maps. All right, here's the plat. This application was received in order to plat and zone property for a church facility. Religious institutions are permitted use within the R1A single-family zoning district. The preliminary plat includes one lot for a future church site. The plat contains a 30-foot trail easement along the south side of the development, which provides an opportunity for a future shared use path connection between 9th Street West and the unplatted area to the east of the subject property if it is needed upon future development of the area to the east. As part of the subdivision process, public dedication of 10% of the property being platted is a requirement. A letter from the Park District in terms of their preference of cash in lieu for land has yet to be received, as the Park District will not be meeting until later this week. Public dedication requirements will be...
Lisa, could you speak up, please?
Yes. I'm just not close enough. Sorry about that. All right. As part of the subdivision process, public dedication of 10% of the property being platted is a requirement. A letter from the West Fargo Park District in terms of their preference for cash in lieu for land has yet to be received, as the Park District isn't meeting until later this week. Public dedication requirements will be detailed within a public dedication agreement to accompany the final plat. Access control on the plat along 9th Street West with openings to line up with the streets to the west is shown on the plat. Driveway access from 9th Street West into the development will line up with 50th Avenue West and Mulberry Lane to the west. Let's see if I can. Thought we had an area plan. A southbound left turn lane from 9th Street West at the intersection of Mulberry Lane is needed to accommodate turning movements into the site during peak traffic periods. Installation of the left turn lane into the development would be a requirement prior to issuance of a certificate of occupancy. These details will be incorporated into the subdivision development agreement prior to consideration of the final plat approval. The northeast corner of the plat sits in proximity to 6th Street West, where the applicant has indicated their intent to secure an access easement to connect a driveway to 6th Street West at this location, as shown on the draft site plan. The applicant held an informational neighborhood meeting on January 23rd, in which the applicant shared an updated site plan and renderings. While many attendees expressed support for the project, some attendees expressed concern regarding the traffic along the neighborhood and had questions relating to such things as drainage and maintenance of the property. To date, staff has received several comments from the public. Comments are summarized in the staff report, and written comments are attached to the agenda packet. Comment received today was received today after the agenda packet had been sent out, and it was provided to the applicant and to the commissioners. A potential increase in neighborhood traffic associated with the proposed church seems to be a primary concern raised. In staff opinions, most traffic will access the church via 9th Street West, which is a collector roadway with capacity capable of handling anticipated traffic. Additionally, most activity for a church typically occurs on Sundays and Wednesday evenings during off-peak hours. While most churches in the city are in or adjacent to residential neighborhoods, staff is unaware of any existing traffic issues. Regarding other concerns raised about the church and location, staff notes that religious institutions such as churches are permitted by right within single-family dwelling districts. The proposed rezoning to R1A is the same zoning district as adjacent properties to the west and north of the subject property and is consistent with the residential nature of the surrounding neighborhood. While the applicant has provided a draft site plan to illustrate the proposed development, site plan review and approval is outside the purview of the subdivision and rezoning process. In terms of consistency with the comprehensive plan and other applicable city plans and ordinances, overall, the proposed development is consistent with city plans and ordinances. The proposed rezoning to R1A is consistent with existing zoning of abutting property and residential nature of the area. The proposed subdivision complies with applicable subdivision standards and accommodates opportunity for future trail and public utility connectivity for adjacent undeveloped areas via establishment of easements. In terms of recommendations, it is recommended that the city approve the proposed subdivision and rezoning application on the basis it is consistent with city plans and ordinances, with recommended conditions of approval as follows. The applicant continues to work with staff as to the details of the public land dedication and that a signed public dedication and a signed subdivision development agreement are submitted prior to final plat approval outlining such details. This is a public hearing. I'm available to answer any questions, and as is the applicant, and there may be some members of the public who would like to comment.
Okay, thank you. This is a public hearing. With that, I will open it up for public comment and input on this topic. Does anybody wish to comment or have input regarding this application? Please, come on up. Please identify who you are, please. And
Good evening. My name is Thomas Moe, and I live over on 808 48th Avenue, so just right across from the property. And my question, and you just have to let me know if I'm not in the right place for the question, but my concern is about property taxes, because as admittedly unscientific polling of all my neighbors, everybody thinks their property taxes are too high, and so we'd like to see more property taxes generated. And so we see this 12 acres over here as the highest and best use for that seems to be single-family residential, where you could, from what I could tell, you could probably get 30, maybe 35 homes in there, probably generating $300 or $1,000 of property taxes or more per year, whereas the church, got nothing against churches generally, but they won't pay property taxes, of course. So where does that concern, that issue about raising property tax revenues and hopefully keeping property tax increases down for everybody else, does that come into play at all when trying to decide on approving a zoning or approving a church building like this?
well, I don't know if I'm good at answering this. One of the things, as far as the tax status regarding a religious institution is not taken into consideration as far as for this. It is being zoned as residential. So, short answer I think is no to your question. That is not, does not influence the decision on allowing this or not.
So that's
It doesn't have any detrimental impact to those in the neighborhood. So
well, but I mean, it's taken. you're taking what could be single-family resident, you're taking property that could generate whatever, let's say 300,000 a year, and instead it's being used for something that was gonna generate zero property taxes, correct? I mean, they're gonna pay some special assessments, but the property taxes will be zero. I'm just wondering who
Don't
makes
know
that
the answer
decision
on
to
that.
go
I
from-
believe specials are not affected. As far as specials, those are applied to all properties. Yeah,
Right, yeah.
but as
specials,
far as,
But property tax, right? Isn't that a fair statement that if that area was filled in with single family, there'd be, pick a number, 300,000, and with this church, the property tax is zero. Churches and schools and hospitals don't pay property tax, right? Or am I missing something there?
yeah, again, I'm not really sure on the answer on that. I believe on the specials, that is paid regardless.
And I'm not
As
talking
far
about
as,
specials,
the
I'm talking about property
taxation.
taxes.
Well, as far as the taxation, you know, understand that also the impact to the utilization of the infrastructure is very different also, as far as, you know, sewage, water, those type of things, which these taxes would go towards anyway. So there's less of a cost as well. So as far as the impact, it's not really a consideration in this.
Okay. And okay, so that's not something that you really have to weigh in on with this commission.
That does not weigh into the decision for approving this plan.
All right.
It's something you probably have to take up with the state legislature. They give churches
No, I'm
tax
not,
abatements in those ways.
I'm not proposing that churches pay tax. I'm just saying in this particular place, this is the highest and best use for this property is single-family residential, at least from a property tax revenue standpoint. Go 2 miles west and you get some farmland, you can build a nice church out there and you wouldn't be taking land out that has that much of a property tax base.
Yeah, it's just something we don't consider.
Yeah.
We consider the
All right.
laws and the rules of the zoning.
Well, I just wanted to leave that
Yep.
comment.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
You had something to add?
Dan Hansen, city engineer for West Fargo, and my understanding is that the church has already purchased the property through a meets and bounds description that hasn't been recorded yet. They've purchased that amount of land in that area already, so what's in front of this commission tonight is the way that it's being developed. So it's already land that is owned by the church, that once it's platted, then the city is going to recognize that. But an exchange through a meets and bounds purchase that we haven't recognized yet has taken place between the developer and the church. So to answer the gentleman's question, the church already owns the property. They're just looking to, here's what we'd like to do with it now. So whether we build the church on it or the church just continues to own it, either way, at this point, there's no tax value being generated because it is owned by the church already, so.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Any other questions, input from the public? Hello.
Hello, my name is Dave Perkins. I live at 1039 Mulberry Lane, just directly to the west of the site. My biggest concern is specific to the traffic on Wednesday nights and Sundays, but also on nights they have weddings and funerals. I don't know how often those are, but just to give people an idea how big this is 1 acre larger than their Hope South campus, but it does have 80 fewer stalls. So I don't know if you've ever been to Hope South on a Sunday service. They have 4 means of egress out of that parking lot, and those dump onto 25th Street, which are 4-lane traffic with 0 or very few pedestrians. This neighborhood has a lot of little kids running around the neighborhood, and it's 2 lanes, one going in each direction on Ninth, and then the north exit goes through basically a 1-lane residential area. So those are my biggest concerns, is child safety and Ninth and Sixth really being able to handle 456 cars during a Sunday service if they meet max capacity, which Hope is a very successful church, and I'm a member of Hope. So just want to make sure we take all that into consideration when we design that. And, you know, when you have turn lanes going in off of Ninth, I don't know how many cars deep that would have to be, but it's not 2 lane, or it's not 2 or 3 cars. It's got to be pretty deep, and Ninth is not wide. So, but I think a church is probably okay. I do think you could alleviate some of those concerns if you had an exit coming up from 52nd to the east of the ranch, but I don't know if that's even a possibility. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other input?
Commissioners, I'm Brian Berg with Zerberg Architects, and I'm working with Hope on the project. And one of the things that we've done to try to alleviate some of the concerns about traffic flowing onto 9th Street is we actually moved the parking lot to the east side of the property. And there's some fairly long driveways that allow cars to queue so that we won't have stacking cars as much as could happen if the parking lot was right inside those entrances off 9th. We might have some people that are queuing up on 9th to get into the parking lot, but because we have these, there's almost 600 feet of driveway to get to the parking lot that's on the east side of the building. The building is going to be located more towards the west side of the property in the green space towards 9th. So there's quite a bit of traffic control built into the way that we organize the parking lots with those long drives, so that as people are stacking to get out of the parking lot, relieving congestion in the parking area, when they're leaving and then when they're coming on Sunday morning or Wednesday evening, to be able to get onto the site quickly because of that extra drive length that we have inside the site, and get them off of 9th Street more quickly. So, and the church is fully aware of the need for that additional left turn lane coming from the north on the north access point. So we've certainly tried to address those concerns. There were concerns raised, as was mentioned earlier, at the public meeting that we had. It was well attended, and there was a lot of great comments there. And certainly the traffic is something that's on our mind too, and we want to make sure that that we're doing everything we can to mitigate that. There was some discussion about possible other ways to control the intersection slightly to the south of the property. Maybe there's some things that could be done to slow down traffic or provide control at that intersection. The school is directly south of the site. It's basically 1 block south and just to the west of the site. And so the amount of traffic that's coming in and out of that school on a daily basis every morning and every evening when students are picked up late afternoon is significant too. So the biggest conflict there would be on that Wednesday night, as was mentioned, with traffic, parent pickup at that location at the end of the school day on Wednesday, and then things really start to get going a couple hours later at Hope for Wednesday evening activities. So there's a little bit of a gap there between when the pressure would be happening on those two intersections. So there's been a lot of discussion about this. It's certainly something that's on our minds, and we're going to continue to look for ways to address it with the city, City of West Fargo.
Looks like there's also an exit onto 6th.
There's an exit on 6th. There was also discussion about how, you can see on the drawing that's up on the screen right now, that's a conceptual proposed, could happen on the property to the east. And there was a desire not only to provide access, the utilities for this big, large area here all come off of 9th. It's one of the reasons that site was preferred over a site to the south, because the utilities all come from the west off of 9th. There are no utilities on 52nd down there. So having having a utility easement that allows whatever future development might happen to the east down the road on that south edge. That utility easement was important, but also having a connection point up in that northeast corner that allows for connection to future roadways for continuity into that site at some point. There are no current plans, is our understanding, to develop that site. It's owned by 52nd Avenue Partners, and right now there are no plans to develop it that are imminent, but the city wanted to have a way to connect in the future. So that small sliver that you see there that connects to the east off of the connection to 6th is the solution to that potential future issue if that area is developed.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. Any other input? Any other input? Questions, comments? Seeing none, I'll close that section of the discussion. Commissioners, thoughts, input, questions?
I heard something said about a school there. Is there school children there at the same time?
Somewhere down here, I believe.
Oh, okay. You're talking about
It's-
this school down here, not a
Yes.
school at the church. Okay.
Correct.
All right.
That uses that same 9th
Yes,
Street
yep.
west.
Yep. Okay, I get that now. Yep.
Any else? Eric, did you have any questions?
Good evening, guys. No questions from me. I appreciated the additional input and comments from the public attendance tonight. I noticed in some of the email comments that were received, some people were asking questions about trees and plantings on the south side of the development. Maybe a question for staff. Does that come up as part of a detailed landscape plan, or is that something we should be addressing now?
Because the zoning is the same, and the parking, there are some requirements as far as the number of parking spots that you can have continually. So the parking, with the original site plan that was shown, showed more than 20 parking spaces in a row. And again, that site plan was conceptual. So I think they were concerned with this area right here. Now, under our landscape and parking ordinance, parking lots need to be broken up if they're more than 20 spaces, so they would need to have some sort of landscaping island there. In conversations with the applicant, they have indicated that they are willing to modify, and they apparently have modified their conceptual site plan and have indicated a willingness to plant trees there. There's also a 30-foot buffer easement, or not buffer easement, but a trail easement planned. So there's the opportunity to plant some landscaping there, depending on it. But
So there's a 30-foot
there's a 30.
trail,
There's a
going down there?
30-foot trail easement located.
that gray area?
On the plat, let's see here. So that's since been added. This was originally conceptual. Sorry about this. Trying to get used to the. So here the property owners are a little concerned with the lights, and so, and maybe the applicant can speak to how they plan to lay out their plan, but they are aware of the concerns and have indicated a willingness, I believe, to plant some trees. But there is a 30-foot trail easement right here, so there's 30 feet where there wouldn't be parking, so landscaping can be placed there, so. And I'll defer to the architect.
Thank you. Again, Commissioners, when we had the public meeting, we had some very good discussion about this exact issue. There was an updated site plan that it sounds like it didn't make into, or looks like it didn't make it into the packet here, but we have broken up the parking lot per that ordinance, or that part of the city ordinance. We've also eliminated all of the parking spaces that are pull-in spaces that face towards the home, so there won't be any lights shining in people's living rooms and that sort of thing. And we've increased the depth of that green space. There's a 30-foot requirement there that's in the easement, but our actual space is closer to 60 feet of green space. And so we have a lot of area there that we can add trees, and our plan in discussions is to exceed the requirements by a fairly significant margin of the land development code here in West Fargo. So we want to make sure that the neighbors both to the south and to the north are protected from just the normal traffic issues that are in large parking lots. And so especially along the southeast line and along the northeast line where it's closest to the parking areas, there's an intent to have significant plantings along that side, tree rows and that kind of thing, so.
Okay, so you've taken the input and adjusted the plans already.
We already have, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Excellent.
I'll move to recommend approval with the one condition.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the application as submitted with the recommendation listed. Any further discussion prior to vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion passed. Okay, thank you. Next item is public hearing A25-2, Maple Ridge at the Preserve, 4th edition, a request for a variance to reduce the required minimum building control line on the commercial overlay, Cheyenne River corridor overlay, excuse me. Cheyenne River Corridor Overlay District at 3110 Cheyenne River Way, Lot 9, Block 1, Maple Ridge at the Preserve, 4th edition. Lisa.
Thank you. This application was received in order to allow for a reduction of the building control line of the Cheyenne River Corridor zoning district standards for construction of an in-ground swimming pool along the west side of the lot. The property is within the Cheyenne River Corridor Overlay Zoning District, which establishes a building control line that restricts structures, parking lots, fill, and other development that may cause increased riverbank destabilization within 100 feet of the established riverbank as determined by the city engineer. The applicant proposes encroaching into the 100-foot building control line area along the west side. So if you look at the site plan, this is the existing 100-foot building control line. The existing home is located right here. This section here is 50 feet from the established riverbank. The existing home lies entirely outside the current building control line. However, the proposed swimming pool is within the existing control line. The applicant has indicated that the pool deck will be approximately 6 feet along the north edge of the property and 75 to 80 feet at the south end of the pool. As provided in the zoning regulations, the City Commission may reduce the required building control line where it can be demonstrated through a soils analysis that soils are stable within the building control line area. Requests for a reduction of the building control area are handled via a variance process. In accordance with the provisions, the applicant has employed a geotechnical firm to provide a soils analysis in respect to the proposed structure. The soils analysis concludes that the swimming pool will not be impacted by soil instability caused by the riverbank. There were some comments from Southeast Cass Water Resource District with concerns over the verbiage from the report that's included in your site plan. The soils analysis has been received and reviewed by the city engineer, who indicated no concerns regarding soil stability based on the findings of the staff analysis, and the city engineer is here today to offer any comments or answer any questions regarding that. It is recommended that the city approve the reduction of the building control line by up to 40 feet as described in the American Engineering Testing Report of the Geotechnical Exploration and Stability Assessment dated January 2nd, 2025, with the condition that the owner sign a release of liability document acknowledging the variance and waiving the city's liability on the basis of the following findings. Number 1, section 4-431-C.3 states that where it can be demonstrated through a soils analysis that the soils are stable within the building control area, the city commission may consider reduction of the required building setbacks by variance. Number 2, in accordance with section 4-431-C.3, the applicant has provided a soils analysis which demonstrates the soils are sufficiently stable to support the in-ground pool that encroaches into the required 100-foot building control area, which has been reviewed and found to be satisfactory by the city engineer. Number 3, the reasons set forth in the application justify the approval of the reduction of the building control line, and it is a minimum variance necessary to accommodate the proposed structure. This is a public hearing. I'm available to answer any questions, as is the applicant, and again, the city engineer is here to answer any questions as well.
I got a couple questions. Can you scroll this picture down just a little bit further? There's another structure that's inside the 50-foot. Is that included in this whole thing? Further
Let's see
south,
here.
I believe that's south, yeah.
So.
What's that thing?
This is pool equipment, and
Why is
we
it
have-
inside the 50?
So we have asked the applicant if this will impact the area. I guess we've had some questions, and he indicated that it can be moved. So if it is determined that it is going to, if they're going to be disturbing the earth, then it will need to be moved.
Well, I mean, that's inside the 50-foot line, which is the maximum of what the ordinance allows us to go. So it can't be there.
Right.
Second thing is, I don't understand all this geotechnical stuff. I tried reading some of it. It's way over my head. Does our engineer concur with that summation or conclusion that comes out of that report, that it is stable to build on? Because that's the crux of the matter, right? Is it? Am I using the right word?
Well, thank you, Mr. Commission
Or am I
President,
mixing my metaphors?
Commissioners. My name is Jerry Wallace. I'm one of the Assistant City Engineers here. I typically spend the most time reviewing these items when they come before the commission bodies. And I actually wanted to get up and just provide a couple points of clarification in regards to what we kind of noticed on this one. Full disclosure, this geotechnical evaluation that we received was, we were talking about it earlier, and quite honestly, we said it's probably the most, correct and, truthful, forthcoming report that we've seen in regards to a lot of these types of variance requests. And, Casserole Water, we did, I guess, kind of concur that, I apologize, Southeast Cass Water Resource District, they had commented that they had some concerns because the report basically says that they're looking at a snapshot in time, that's right now. And they did not analyze basically what would have been, the long-term, call it slope stability, stepping failures. It's well known that just over time with the Cheyenne River being such a young river, the areas adjacent to it are prone to movement. Now it's very difficult to predict, when those movements are going to occur. But, that is something we need to consider. And that's kind of what the geomorphology comment kind of goes into. Their comment was, should the geotechnical engineer who prepared the report perhaps be, required to comment more and elaborate, is it a concern? Because, Full disclosure, at the engineering department here, none of us have a geotechnical expertise background. We dabble in it periodically from time to time, but, we're not going to claim to be geotechnical engineers here. A couple other points just to make. When we first reviewed this one, we did note, just again that, the note about future recurring maintenance may be necessary to reduce the risk of potential for step sloughing back towards the property over time. That specific verbiage was different from, a lot of the typical reports we see on this, and it did raise an eyebrow, but at the end of the day, the report, is, in essence, does largely satisfy the requirements of the ordinance in that, the area is stable. At this snapshot in time, the installation of the pool is not going to exacerbate, the conditions around the pool. It's interesting to note in one part of the report, it did say that, in the area of the immediate bank, right at the river line there, the factor of safety in that location is less than 1, which indicates it's likely currently sloughing or likely to slough in the short term. But again, that's outside, considerably outside the footprint of the pool.
So that's at the 0 mark, you're saying, and that's at,
I apologize, I actually
the
didn't bring that
50-foot
part of the
mark?
report with me, but in the cross sections that you can see further down in the geotechnical report, you can kind of make out where the river channel is, and then there's a softer slope that comes away from that. So it's where that softer slope kind of meets that steeper slope. That's where the river channel begins, and that's where they're referencing it's fairly unstable at this point in time. Like I said, considerable distance away from where the proposed pool is going to go. Really, and I guess the last thing to hit on is, we, even earlier today, we had some discussion with Southeast Cass, and I think a lot of the verbiage was, there's concern. Now it's very difficult, I think, for anybody to say, should the pool move forward and be constructed? Is it going to be 100 years before it falls into the river? Is it going to be next year? Very difficult for anybody, probably even a geotechnical engineer, to predict that. But again, as our ordinance is written, this report seems to largely conform with those requirements.
but the risks or the concerns that are being raised are to the durability of the structure, which the liability waiver that we're asking to sign puts squarely on the homeowner. Correct?
I guess the last thing I would say is if this were a proposed city facility, we would strongly encourage relocating it and not installing it in this location. But again, that's a decision for this body and the city commission to make.
Potentially, they'll have a very expensive pier.
Mr. Chair, is it possible for you to translate the last sentence of the first bullet point from the Water Resource District engineer? The analysis restricted failure to identify the anticipated failure surface for the required factor of safety to better assess this. I think my English teacher's spinning in her grave right now, but maybe that makes sense.
Is that engineering English?
I don't know.
I apologize. Where is that?
It's the last sentence of the first bullet point.
Is that under discussions and observations?
Well, it's from the
They gave
from
us an
Josh
ex-
Holmes, the letter we got from this is the Water Resource District engineer.
The last bullet point there?
The first bullet point, last sentence.
Oh, okay. The analysis restricted failure to identify the anticipated failure surface for the required factor of safety. I think what the engineer is trying to allude to here is that traditionally, when we see a lot of these brought forward for review, there's about 1.3, 1.4 factor of safety. That is the standard geotechnical answer for, hey, if we're looking to put a building somewhere, we typically look to see that minimum either met or exceeded. And I believe the engineer is saying that when they model where the potential failures could occur with their software, they'll try to key in on where the lowest factor of safety is. And the report alluded to at this location, approximately 20 feet from where the proposed pool is going to go, we observed an estimated factor of safety around 1.4, which is traditionally acceptable.
So it's close, but not within, it's still above the margin of safety that is required, say. If not
Traditionally.
not recommended, if the city was building something here, we probably would shy away from it, but it's,
Correct.
the report says, well, safety factor is about, gets to a sufficiently high level at about 20 feet away from the structure. Is that
And that would be the most likely point to see a future failure. And they're saying that, it's difficult to predict if and when that will ever fail, but it's currently estimated to have this factor of safety, which meets or exceeds what we traditionally recommend is what,
okay?
I don't know,
flip-
my rough translation is. Apologize.
While you're up here, one other question. So flipping it on its head, is there any increased risk of damage, detriment to the river itself as a result of this structure being located there that we know of?
Generally speaking, over time, it's difficult to point to any area in town that sees immediate catastrophic failure in regards to structures. The slow creeping failure, stepping failure that they talk about, it's observable in a lot of areas of town. It's observable down in Horace. But as far as immediate concern, I would say, you'll continue to see those slow creeping failures develop. Now, could potentially, however many years from now, a pool or structure start to become part of the river, that is a possibility, and that would be considered a detriment to the river. And at that time, there'd probably be discussions with the Water Resource District of is there mitigation needed, so on and so forth. But like I said, generally difficult to predict those things, and they typically happen over a slow period of time. If that helps to answer your question.
Kind of.
The worst case scenario is a catastrophic failure after a 2-year drought and a 15-inch rain, and 20,000 gallons of chlorinated water leak into the river. What's our risks of that happening?
Not an environmental engineer,
Right,
but
right,
it sounds
yeah. After
low.
15 inches of rain, it's going to be watered down enough. Probably not going to happen.
The other comment that's probably worth making is, when upon completion of the large Fargo Moorhead diversion, there is a normalization, so to speak, of the flow through the Cheyenne River that's going to occur as part of the tail end of that project. So you'll see less opportunity for rapid rises and lowerings in the water level there, which will aid in stability of the riverbank. But with that, I'll stand if you have any other questions.
So the Southeast Cast report notes that future reoccurring maintenance may be necessary over time to stop the step sloughing over time. Would there be anything that would actually require the property owner to do that maintenance to prevent the sloughing in the future?
Generally that's going to be the subjective, discretion of the property owner as to, if they slowly start to see that creeping failure come closer and closer to, structures on the property, if and when they may want to try to take action on that. Traditionally, we'll see just, I'm quite often the individual from the city that's going out and meeting with residents on structures that are, experiencing these types of issues. And, you'll see, it's quite common to see the bank fall a foot, at a certain failure plane where it starts to develop, maybe 2 feet. Usually nothing, 10 or 20 feet, I mean, nothing like that. But the comments at that point are, is it safe to, kind of grade it and smooth it out? You can always look at further measures, but a lot of the times they prove to be cost prohibitive. Sheet piling, those types of things, just the average resident, that's pretty cost prohibitive for them to enter into.
And the concern is more about the integrity of the pool than the integrity of the river at that point, right?
If you're the resident, absolutely.
What's the concern of, it's on an outside bend in the river, which tends to be less stable? Or
It's on a cut bank, so those are traditionally the less stable sides of the river.
Thanks.
Thank
Question
you.
for staff. Have we done similar variances on Cheyenne River properties further south? I believe we have.
We recently did one directly to the north for a home that was found to be partially in there.
But it was a lot smaller of an encroachment, right? It was
Correct, and
the
then we
the
just
corner of the house or something like that, I remember.
we just reviewed one on an oxbow around 35th Avenue East. That was our last meeting. I'm trying to recall what the setback was on that, if it was a 70-foot encroachment.
How many?
It was, I believe the request was, I was a 30-foot encroachment, so it was 70 feet from the established riverbank. That was the most recent one
Okay,
along that,
so on the same
Peninsula?
scale, more or less. All right. I didn't open it up for public. We started questions. Are there any input or comment from the public? Seeing none, I'll close that. Apologize for that. We dove right into all the questions. Okay. Any other questions, discussion? I would accept the motion.
Well, the geotechnical study is what we've got to rely on. It's allowed. As long as that comes in, and if engineering's happy with it, and staff is happy with it, I'll recommend approval as a motion.
I'll second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the variance as presented with the one condition or two, how many were there? Recommendations with the signing of the release, I believe was the one major one. Any further discussion or questions prior to vote?
Just a quick note, I did go back and look at the last one that we did in the last meeting, and that was a 20-foot variance.
20 foot. Thank you. Any other further discussion before vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Motion passed. Please note the one negative from Commissioner Dodds. All right. Interesting. Heck of a pool. Item number 3 is the approval of updates to the commission bylaws.
All right, good evening. So this item is in follow-up to some discussion that was held with the Planning and Zoning Commission last month during our discussion agenda. These are some updates to the Planning and Zoning Commission bylaws. Not much has changed from the version that was presented last month. Included in your staff, or in your packet here is a memorandum that outlines the primary changes that we're looking to make here. The overall intent is to, one, address some concerns we've had with making sure that we have a quorum for folks that have applications in front of this board, and then two, just to clean up some of the misalignment, if you will, between the bylaws as written and some of our current practices and things. So I think the two main ones that I want to call your attention to that have changed since last month are, the first one is we're looking to allow members to serve more than 2 terms in situations in which there are no other applicants willing to serve. Currently, board members are limited to 2 consecutive 5-year terms. And so I think as this board is aware, we've had issues in particular with our extraterritorial representation. The county has had, they haven't had any applicants. And so we've had 2 vacant seats, I think for close to 3 years now for the extraterritorial representatives on this board. And so that was the primary reason for that change. You'll see in the language, there is a kind of an updated version attached to the memo as well as a red line version. So I have the red line version pulled up on the screen here so you can actually see some of those highlights. My glasses are a little old, so I can't quite see some of these from this distance, but I can certainly talk through any of these in more detail. The second one that I wanted to call your attention to is at the end of the document, there was that section on the work plan. You may recall that was kind of a question posed to the Planning and Zoning Commission last month in terms of whether or not you want to keep that or if we should start doing a work plan. And so staff has come up with some language here that basically, the way it reads is staff will kind of maintain a work plan, and the Planning and Zoning Commission will review that work plan annually and then provide input and thoughts in terms of priorities and anything that maybe is not on there that we should look to consider adding to that work plan. Currently, we have the Planning Needs Assessment Action Plan. That was kind of a targeted effort to develop somewhat of a work plan a couple of years ago. And so we are currently still working through that document, and what I would anticipate is we would kind of take that document and continue to update it and tweak it as time goes on. It might be just a simple one-pager with a list of projects or priorities that the city is working on for planning and zoning input. Also gives this board an idea of some of the things that you're likely to see in a given year. So outside of that, the other changes are, I think, the same from last time around.
So before you move from
Yep.
this point,
Yep.
apologize. So the needs assessment was, when we talked about this last month, we said, well, it's actually doing that same function as a work program, but we're not incorporating it into this specifically, or
Not specifically. I think the intention of staff, at least, was to be relatively informal. The planning needs assessment, that was a project that we hired a consultant to help us out with and kind of facilitate some of those discussions with the City Commission, Planning and Zoning Commission, and staff. I don't anticipate us doing that super regularly. Certainly, if we need to, we could kind of do a similar project. I think what we're anticipating and what we're proposing is that we continue to add projects onto that list and just maintain that in-house, and then annually review that with the Planning and Zoning Commission.
well, the plan B in our discussion last month was just get rid of it, any sort of work program requirement.
That's an option as well, yep.
So this is not worded in that way.
Correct. The way it's worded now is that staff
So we
would,
would have to, you got it in capital letters, have a work program of some sort, be it one pager. So that's something we've not done.
that's something we've not done in the past, but it's in the bylaws, and certainly some jurisdictions have something similar.
The other thing is when we say annually, we don't say when annually. It's like first quarter, first month, second month, whatever. If we're gonna have this, my suggestion would be that, all right, well, let's put some specificity in there too.
Sure. So we would anticipate January being the kind of our annual kind of administrative meeting where we're electing board members. And so I think in staff's opinion, if you're looking for a month, I would suggest inserting January into the bylaws.
Yeah, it's just my opinion. If we're gonna have it, well, and then we're gonna have to catch up this year, because we're a little behind the power curve. Okay, now go to the next section.
Okay. So outside of those, the remaining items were discussed last month, and there's been really no changes to those. So inserting the word bylaws into the title of the document, and then using some common language to refer to this document throughout. We've added some references acknowledging and clarifying membership roles of the ex officio members of the Planning and Zoning Commission. And so that's actually spelled out in our ordinances that the city attorney, the city engineer, and the president of the city commission are actually, are technically ex officio members of the Planning and Zoning Commission. And so we're just specifying there that they are non-voting members, they don't count for quorum, but they are allowed to participate, at their discretion. And the last one there is just to reduce the required quorum from 4 members to 3 members during such times that there are 2 or more vacancies on the commission. And so, again, that's going back to trying to address some of the concerns where we have 2 vacancies right now from our extraterritorial seats. Sometimes you guys have busy lives, and so we get a little nervous sometimes. So it's a temporary measure. Once those seats are filled, or we have,
So
only
we're supposed to
one
have
vacancy.
3 from the extra
Yep, 5 members from the
And-
city, 3 from the extraterritorial.
5, so we have 1 open on the city, or still, or no?
Nope, we got 5 from the city,
2,
1 from the extraterritorial, and then 2 vacancies.
yeah, we got 5. He's the oddball.
Well, I appreciate you changing these bylaws, so it appears like it's gonna be similar to serving on the township board, where either I find my replacement, I move out of the ET, or I die to get off this thing. And I am not leaving this thing without an ET member. Just, if you'll have me, but I won't do that. It's really important to have somebody from the ET on this.
So that's what I've got for you. It's up to the Planning and Zoning Commission on whether or not you want to approve these tonight, or if you want to, give staff some further direction to, make any changes and bring it back to you, or if there's a simple tweak, we can probably handle that tonight as well. So happy to answer any questions you have for staff.
My only input would be just the one suggestion of somehow adding a date or a month to target for the annual, and then everything else I'm okay with. Anybody else?
Does staff have any concerns with Joe's suggestion?
Nope.
Then I would move to recommend approval of this with Joe's suggestion. Maybe a date.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the updates to the bylaws with one change of adding a month to the wording for the establishment of the work program section. Any further discussion prior to vote? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign. The updates are approved. Okay, any non-agenda items to discuss?
Maybe just one update for the Planning and Zoning Commission. As you know, we've contracted with HKGI on the Growth Area Master Plan. We just had our first initial kind of kickoff call, virtual call here this afternoon. So we anticipate having something, potentially in front of the Planning and Zoning Commission as soon as next month, potentially, for some initial input into that process. So you'll probably be seeing some communication from staff within the next couple of weeks with some, more detail in that regard. I'd say from what we've seen so far, their intention is to be, pretty robust in their outreach to the various, commissions and boards and different stakeholder groups throughout the community. So a lot more to come on that in the not too distant future.
Okay, thanks. Okay, last item is our favorite. Anybody a motion for adjournment?
Second.
Moved and second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
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 Meeting adjourned. Okay, thanks, Eric. Where you at?
Thanks, guys. See you later.
I don't know, some hotel it looked like.
Every time I put